Order. Honorable Farah, take the nearest seat. Order. Honorable Mukunji, take the nearest seat. Honorable members, I have a message to convey from His Excellency the President. Honorable members, the message is on the nomination of persons for appointment to offices of cabinet secretaries. Honorable members, Standing Order 42-1 relating to messages from the President provide that the Speaker shall read to the House any message from the President delivered to the Speaker for communication to the House. In this regard, I wish to convey to the House that this afternoon I have received a further message from His Excellency the President notifying the nomination of various persons to appointment to the offices of Cabinet Secretaries. The names are in addition to the ones I conveyed to the House yesterday. In the message, His Excellency the President conveys that in exercise of powers conferred on him by Articles 152(2) of the Constitution, as read together with Section 3 and 5 of the Public Appointments Parliamentary Approval Act 2011, he nominates various persons for appointment to the aforementioned offices. For clarity, Article 152(2) of the Constitution states, and I quote, "The President shall nominate and with the approval of the National Assembly appoint Cabinet Secretaries." The names of persons submitted to this House for approval for appointment as Cabinet Secretaries are as follows: John Mbandi Ngongo, EGH, Cabinet Secretary, Cabinet Secretary, the National Treasury and Economic Planning. Honorable Salim Mvuriangala Mugala, EGH, Cabinet Secretary, Ministry of Investment, Trade and Industry. Honorable Rebecca Miano, EGH, Cabinet Secretary, Ministry of Tourism and Wildlife. Honorable James Opio Wandai, EGH, Cabinet Secretary, Ministry of Energy and Petroleum. Honorable Onesimus Kipchumba Murkomen, EGH, Cabinet Secretary, Minister of Youth Affairs, Creative Economy and Sports. Honorable Hassan Ali Joho, EGH, Cabinet Secretary, Minister of Youth, Ministry of Mining, Blue Economy and Maritime Affairs. Honorable Dr. Alfred Nganga Mutua, EGH, Cabinet Secretary, Minister of Labor and Social Protection. Honorable Wycliffe Ambetsa Oparanya, EGH, Cabinet Secretary, Minister of Cooperative and Micro, Small and Medium Enterprises Development. Honorable Justin Betan Njoka Muturi, EGH, Cabinet Secretary, Minister of Public Service and Human Capital Development. Honorable Ms. Stella Soy Langat, Cabinet Secretary, Ministry of Gender, Culture, the Arts and Heritage. In view of the foregoing and pursuant to the provisions of Section 8 of the Public Appointments Parliamentary Approval Act of 2011, Order Mayaka. In view of the foregoing and pursuant to the provisions of Section 8 of the Public Appointments Parliamentary Approval Act 2011, as read together with the Standing Order 42-3, I hereby refer the message from the President together with the curriculum vitae of the nominees to the Committee on Appointments. Honorable members, Section 8 of the Public Appointments Parliamentary Approval Act 2011 provides that unless otherwise provided in law, the committee to which such nomination is referred shall consider the matter and table a report in the House within 28 days. It is therefore imperative that the Committee on Appointments consolidates the names contained in the two lists and immediately commence the process of consideration of the nominees. The committee is expected to immediately notify the nominees and the general public commence the necessary approval hearings and table its report in the House soonest to enable the House consider the nominees within the stipulated timelines. I thank you. Call out again now order number 10. Number 9.
Order number 10, motion, consideration of Senate amendments to the Conflict of Interest Bill, National Assembly Bill number 12 of 2023.
Majority Leader.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, allow me to move that the Senate amendments to the Conflict of Interest Bill, National Assembly Bill number 12 of 2023, be now considered. Honorable Speaker, pursuant to Standing Order 48, allow me to move this motion in an amended form, which is that the Senate amendments to the Conflict of Interest Bill.
Order.
Honorable Speaker, if you can
Order, honorable members. Order. Honorable Raphael Wanjala. Recess quietly. Members on their feet, take your seats. Honorable Sirima, you're a senior. You should be the last to interrupt proceedings. Members who wish to walk out of the chamber, do it with order. This bill that is being moved has tremendous consequences on many of the things that this country is doing. And I would expect you to listen to the majority leader, contribute where you can, or vote when the vote is called. It is not fair for you to vote on a bill you have not even listened to.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I think members are a bit excited because of the communication you made, especially considering that there are a number of nominees who are members of this House, and it is premature of us to get excited because we are expected to vet these nominees. And I could only take this opportunity to congratulate my good friend, the Honorable Millie Mabona Odhiambo, who I see has taken over a seat, not a position. And any member can sit anywhere, by the way. Therefore, allow me, Honorable Speaker, I was saying, understanding Order 48, to allow me to move this motion in an amended form, which is that the Senate amendments to the Conflict of Interests Bill, National Assembly Bill number 12 of 2023, be now rejected. Honorable Speaker, under the normal circumstances, such a motion to consider Senate amendments to a bill that originated from the National Assembly would ordinarily be moved by the chairperson of the relevant committee, under whose mandate the bill falls, and in this case, I think it's a JLR committee. And Honorable Speaker, in the present case, I have decided to move this motion as the sponsor of the bill to expedite its consideration owing to the peculiar circumstances of the positions taken by the two houses of the bill, on the bill, Honorable Speaker. And thank you, Honorable Speaker, that you have pointed it out to members that this bill has huge implications on the conduct of business for both public and state officers, and therefore is important that members pay keen attention to all the amendments that were proposed by the Senate, which were communicated to the House on the 4th of June 2024, and the amendments were committed to the Departmental Committee on JLAC for consideration and reporting to the House. The nature of the amendments received from the Senate has largely informed my decision to move this motion to catalyze its inevitable referral to mediation. Because, Honorable Speaker, as I said, the Senate made amendments that would necessitate us getting into a process of mediation. And however long JLAC team takes, I think the end result will be the same, getting into a mediation committee that can unlock the extremely divergent views of the two houses on the content of the bill, which I will shortly highlight. Honorable Speaker, when I introduced this bill, it sought to repeal the Public Officer Ethics Act of 2003 and establish a framework for managing conflict of interest in the discharge of public duties under the general supervision of the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, EACC. Currently, Honorable Speaker, the Public Officer Ethics Act establishes various entities as responsible commissions for various state and public officers. For instance, Honorable Speaker, the Committee of Powers and Privileges of the National Assembly is the responsible commission for these members of parliament who are not listening, Honorable Speaker. It is the responsible commission for members of the National Assembly, while the Parliamentary Service Commission is the responsible commission for all parliamentary staff. The bill as published sought to change this by making EACC responsible for all state and public officers. Honorable Speaker, when this House considered the bill, it made various... I shall not repeat because you are asked by the Speaker to pay attention. I have told you, under the Public Officers and Ethics Act, it establishes various commissions that are responsible for the conduct of overseeing the conflict of interest. Under this Act, the Powers and Privileges Committee of the National Assembly is the responsible commission under the Act for members of Parliament, while the Parliamentary Service Commission is the responsible commission for members of staff. And I further said that the bill, as published, sought to change this by making EACC the responsible commission for all state and public officers. I further told you that when this House considered the bill, and we did all consider in second reading and the Committee of the Whole, we made various amendments which sought to do a number of things, including one, maintaining the existing model of wealth declarations to entities that directly supervise the conduct and ethics of the various categories of public officers. In this regard, the House agreed to repeal the Public Officer Ethics Act and insisted on transferring specific provisions from the Act to the bill. Two, we align the bill with the responsibilities of members of Parliament, and this is important, members, that when in Committee of the Whole we considered amendments, we aligned the bill to your responsibilities as members of Parliament on declaration of conflict of interest in parliamentary debate under the Parliamentary Powers and Privileges Act of 2017. You remember the bill, as was published, was creating a conflict of interest even on matters that pertain to your work as a member of Parliament. And we sought to make those amendments during the Committee of the Whole. Three, we expanded the declarations to include previous categories of public and state officers that were not expressly provided for under the Public Officer and Ethics Act, for instance, that of the Chief Justice and Cabinet Secretaries. Four, we limited the definition of the word relative. Those who are here during second reading, you will all recall the very broad definition of the word relative in the conduct of affairs of a state or public officer, and we limited this definition to the affairs of a state or public officer and his or her dependent children. And we also, in 5, prohibited, not only prohibiting public officers from contracting with public bodies in which they are employed. You will recall the bill as published prohibited public and state officers and their broad definition of relatives from conducting business with any entity of government. Conversely, Honorable Speaker, from the message received from the Senate has reversed everything that this House passed. The Senate has deleted and proposed repeal of the Public Officer Ethics Act. This has resulted in the proposed repeal of clauses including those on functions of the Commission, participation of members in proceedings before Parliament or county assemblies, Therefore, there is debate you cannot interact with as a member of parliament or as a member of county assemblies on the basis of what the Senate has done. Acquisition of interest in partnerships and private companies, restricted gainful employment, for instance, people who are here and are lawyers, professional accountants, etc. The register of conflict of interest, where this register will be. Prohibitions on state officers after leaving office, having served as a state officer, what other gainful employment can you get into? And we had made amendments relating to that. The prohibition against representing people before reporting entities, and declaration of income, assets, and liabilities by public officers. Honorable Speaker, additionally, the Senate has deleted the EACC as administrator of the bill and deleted all provisions on conflicts of interest in the Public Officer Ethics Act, the Leadership and Integrity Act, the Anti-Corruption and Economic Crimes Act, and the Senate amendments are the complete opposite of what the National Assembly considered and passed in the bill. I therefore move that the Honorable Speaker, I've just given the background of what we had done in this bill and what the Senate has proposed to do in the amendments that I'm calling on the House to reject. Because what the amendments that the Senate has passed, besides negating everything that we did to make this bill become workable, what the Senate has done, and without casting aspersions on the other House, Honorable Speaker, must be informed by a huge conflict of interest in the other House. Because, Honorable Speaker, you appreciate this is a House that has been unable to impeach even a single governor. And I saw them the other day pontificating on issues to do with integrity and corruption in this country, Honorable Speaker. But, Honorable Speaker, and you know, we have restrained ourselves over the last 2 years from discussing the other House or even the conduct of members of that House, even under extreme provocation. But, Honorable Speaker, we must stand with the people of Kenya. This bill is critical in the fight against corruption. The dilution that the other House, Senate, has visited on this bill makes this bill completely unworkable. It creates a very fertile ground for corruption and conflict of interest to continue taking root in our republic, Honorable Speaker. Therefore, we must be the bigger brother between the two houses. We must be the House that stands with the people of Kenya who have spoken loudly and told us that matters touching on conflict of interest, matters touching on theft of public resources must come to an end. We must be that House, Honorable Speaker, that today will stand with the people of Kenya and tell our brothers in the Senate that it will not be business as usual for governors to steal and get away scot-free with what they have stolen from the people of Kenya, knowing that because of conflict of interest, they can influence what will happen in the other House and their county assemblies. We must be that House. Honorable Speaker, this House has a singular responsibility of being the people's representatives, while the other House represents counties. Being the people's representatives, Honorable Speaker, we must be the ones to stand today with the people of Kenya. And I think, Honorable Speaker, listening to what Kenyans are saying out there, and I have seen this being one of the bills that even the young Kenyans in our country and other Kenyans of goodwill who want a change in the manner things are done in this country have asked the Houses of Parliament to expedite with is this bill. And therefore, Honorable Speaker, we have a national duty to reject these amendments, get into mediation, and show our brothers and sisters in the other House that it is only right to do what is good for the greater good of our people, not what is good for leaders and public officers who hold office. Honorable Speaker, this bill, and I have heard in today's communication from the President, he has also alluded to it, is an important bill not just for us as public and state officers, even to protect ourselves as state officers against accusations, unfair accusations, of engaging in corruption or corrupt activities, but also in protecting the assets of the Kenyan people against public and state officers, Honorable Speaker, and even people in the private sector, Honorable Speaker. This bill was misconstrued in the other house to be speaking to just public and state officers. The conduct of corrupt activities in this country, Honorable Speaker, is also largely driven by the private sector. This conflict of interest bill speaks also to conflict of interest by the private sector. 1 minute. Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I was saying, for instance, if you look at the lot and the looting that has pervaded in the old NHIF, the National Health Insurance Fund, it has not come out of conflict of interest by particularly state officers. Private entities have engaged in massive looting and corruption in NHIF. And therefore, Honorable Speaker, when you run a private hospital and you engage with a public entity, it is only a law like this that will protect the assets of the Kenyan people. And I want to beg this House, as I move and call on the Vice Chair of the Jailer Committee, the Honorable Mwengi Mutuse, to second. I want to call on this House to reject in total all the amendments by the Senate to protect the people of Kenya from conflict of interest, corruption, and wanton looting of their assets and resources. I beg to move and ask Honorable Mutuse to second.
Mutuse.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I stand to second the motion that has been ably moved by our majority leader, that the Senate amendments to the conflict of interest bill that was considered by my committee, the Justice and Legal Affairs Committee, that have been referred to this House by the Senate be rejected. Mr. Speaker, the amendments that have been referred by the Senate are very retrogressive. They are in themselves going to undermine very directly the war on corruption. They are in themselves making the conflict of interest bill an empty shell of its former objectives. Mr. Speaker, all of us in this House agree that the reason why we have wanton corruption in the national government and in the county governments is because those who are in leadership are able to do and transact with the offices that they also superintend. And the bill intends to remove conflict of interest so that government entities are not corrupted by people who have been appointed or elected into office. The Senate has made amendments that make it possible, for example, for a permanent secretary to own a company and do business in a state department that the permanent secretary is an accounting officer. This House must stand and say that this cannot be allowed. Out there, Kenyans are saying that we are able to fund our own development, that we may not even be able to need to increase taxes if we are able to take care of corruption and take care of wastage. What the Senate is doing through the amendments is to legalize corruption, is to make it possible for a member of parliament, for example, to be able to transact with the Parliamentary Service Commission, which in itself is even rejected under our own parliamentary privileges and standing orders. So, Mr. Speaker, as I second this motion, I urge the House to reject the Senate amendments and that the bill be referred under Article 113 for mediation so that we do not undermine the war on corruption and that we take into effect the voice of Kenyans. And therefore, I second and urge that we reject the Senate amendments and refer the bill for mediation. I thank you, Mr. Speaker, and urge the House to do as required through the powers conferred on the Speaker under Article 113 to appoint a mediation committee. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable members, I now propose the question, which is that the Senate amendments to the Conflict of Interest Bill, National Assembly Bill number 12 of 2023 be now considered. And remember that the majority leader moved it in an amended form. So, Dindi Nyoro, are you here on budget? No contributors? Yes. Wangare? Wangare wants to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to support the majority leader on this bill. And Mr. Speaker, I think the most saddening thing with the amendments done by the Senate is that it takes us very far back in the war of corruption. Mr. Speaker, the issues we have been dealing with for the last 1 month or so, generated by Kenyans, by Gen Zs, by civil society, Mr. Speaker, most of them could be sorted if we dealt with corruption. Because, Mr. Speaker, every year we have had issues of pilferages of money, both at the national level and at the county level. So, Mr. Speaker, anything that would jeopardize that fight should be rejected, and we should actually support this bill and the way we had passed it, Mr. Speaker. And we shall reject the amendments of the Senate and go with what we had passed as the National Assembly, because they called us sitting, the Senate called us sitting, and I'm avoiding to delve into casting aspersions to the Senate, but I think the Senate has lost the track of what they should be doing. Because, Mr. Speaker, one of the biggest issues we have is that we have so much money going to the counties, but we don't see the value of it. We don't see governors being held accountable. In other words, Mr. Speaker, what we have seen is the Senate being obsessed. And I say that because I've been a former senator, Mr. Speaker, that they forget their major and main mandate of protecting the counties, Mr. Speaker. What we have seen is that we have actually be calling the governors and the CECs from the counties to show accountability, because the mandate of oversight of government in the national level is vested in this House, Mr. Speaker. We must actually, Mr. Speaker, have the conversation of whether a CS should appear before the Senate or it should be a governor and the CECs, Mr. Speaker, because we have now our CSs giving excuses that they are not able to come to this National Assembly because either in the morning they were in the Senate or in the afternoon they were in the Senate. It has become a matter of duplication, Mr. Speaker, and we should be able to deal with it at some point. But on this bill, Mr. Speaker, even the President, as he made this address that he made earlier, Mr. Speaker, he alluded to this issue, because if we do not deal with matter governance, with matter corruption, then we'll have done nothing, Mr. Speaker. So I hope that we'll do justice, and the members that will be chosen under Article 113 on mediation can be able to do justice to this bill, so that we can be able to properly deal with corruption. Because you cannot say you're taking from this hand and the right hand is hidden behind, Mr. Speaker. So I actually support the majority leader, and that we should reject the amendments done by the Senate and this bill to proceed as it was, Mr. Speaker, so that we are able to deal properly with the issues that have been raised for the last few weeks. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Oundo.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. When we enacted the new constitution under Chapter 6, we were very careful. We knew absolute power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. And that's why Chapter 6 of Integrity and Leadership was inserted in the Constitution. We proceeded to prepare an Act of Parliament that made a mockery of Chapter 6. We proceeded to have various anti-corruption laws that do not seem to be biting, because outside the Honorable Speaker, many Kenyans believe is the elected leaders, is the political class that the purveyors of corruption in this country. Honorable Speaker, we as Parliament, and that includes National Assembly and Senate, if we can water down the bill that we passed here to make it practically impossible to hold accountable elected leaders, then, Honorable Speaker, we are taking this country into abyss. And that's why I support, as moved by the majority leader, that what Senate did was a great disservice for this country. And, Honorable Speaker, I think Senate is suffering from inferiority complex. Senate thinks that members of Parliament here, National Assembly, have got so much money that they're wallowing in a lot of money. And that's why they go to the pettiness to come and see how many cars are in the parking slot of the National Assembly. How many new cars or how many new tires members of Parliament have bought. They have this misconception even those who have been here, Honorable Speaker, that members of parliament use CDF to fund their personal lifestyle. Honorable Speaker, we cannot afford to allow conflict of interest not to be called out. Honorable Speaker, where we are in a position of influence. So if we allow ourselves to also start doing business with our own entity, it means therefore, Honorable Speaker, no other Kenyan will ever get a contract, will ever get any job in this country unless you know somebody. We must win ourselves this mentality that you must know somebody for you to get employed, that you must be connected to you for get a tender, that you must bribe for you to be paid for any work you have done anywhere. Honorable Speaker, I want to urge those who will be appointed to go to mediation committee. I want to urge, because at times have been some of them, senators can bully ordinary members to accept their way. Here we go with the irreducible minimum. The irreducible minimum is the bill that we passed in this House. Any other story, Honorable Speaker, we will expose them and surrender them to Gen Z to deal with them accordingly. Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I support the motion by the majority leader.
Member for Gishugu. Give him the mic.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I support the motion as moved by the leader of my majority. And Honorable Speaker, the principle of conflict of interest has been there for many, many years. And it has been loosely been used under the tenets of natural justice. And this issue has been left by the courts to determine whether there is conflict of interest or not. But now here comes a law that is very explicit to explain matters of conflict of interest. And this House, Mr. Speaker, will not allow Senate to stand on the way of Kenyans in fight of corruption, because that is what they want us to, they want to take us back to. And we have to stand as a House and support the government, which is now committed towards fighting corruption. And the executive, through the president, has already pronounced itself that this is a government that is willing to fight corruption. And therefore, Senate should not come on the way of the will of the Kenyans to fight corruption. And that is why, Mr. Speaker, without belaboring the points, I support the motion as moved and will reject in totality the proposals that have been made by the Senate. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
KJ.
Mr. Speaker, I do stand up to support the report as presented and amended by the Leader of Majority, and also to object to the changes that have been put in by the Senate. Honorable Speaker, right from the onset, I'd like to say that this bill in itself was a great opportunity for this House to start addressing some of the matters that are being conversed, even by the young people who are calling themselves Gen Zs. The issue of conflict of interest in the management of affairs of government is a thorn in the flesh to this country. So, Mr. Speaker, where this House was seeking to remedy some of these maladies, it looks like Senate is keen on taking us back to a place where we are not able to counter the issue of conflict of interest. And for that reason, Mr. Speaker, I do object. Mr. Speaker, the issues that are being canvassed in the country today are calling us to order. It is at a point like this when we ought to ask ourselves as a republic, issues of conflict of interest aside, even the constitution of this country, Mr. Speaker, is now ready for an audit. This constitution has been with us for a good 15 years. It is at this point that we should ask ourselves, how has this constitution served us in the last 15 years? And when we audit the constitution, we shall put Senate on the spot. We shall ask ourselves, in its composition as it is right now, Mr. Speaker, is the Senate serving Kenya right. And to my mind, there are some amendments in the Constitution that would occasion for us to relook at how Senate is constituted. As it is, Mr. Speaker, Senate is required to be attending to the matters of counties, Mr. Speaker. And even as the Gen Zs are calling out the rot in the national government, we know that there are even bigger problems in the counties, Mr. Speaker. And if Senate was true to its roles, Senate would have already gone into these county governments and checked on the rot that is happening in the executives of counties, Mr. Speaker. The rot and the conflict of interest that is happening in the business that is being conducted in counties. So, Mr. Speaker, I do object vehemently, and I say that even as we are looking at these matters of conflict of interest, it is the right time that this country had a conversation with itself on how the Constitution has served us for the last 15 years. Finally, Mr. Speaker, I do believe that if we look at how Senate is composed, we as a country might decide to borrow a leaf from jurisdictions like that of the UK, where the House of Commons has its job laid out for itself. But the House of Senate in the UK, Mr. Speaker, and you would be one to tell us, is a house that is reserved for very esteemed people and citizens, Mr. Speaker. That if we were to recompose our Senate, we might decide that we shall reserve the Senate for those Kenyans who have served so diligently in very specific areas, and they would be the people that we would be nominating to Senate, so that it is a proper nyumba la wazee, which advises the country on very topical and very technical issues from a point of information. As it is right now, the Senate does find itself at times with no business to prosecute other than to meddle with the work that is being done by the National Assembly. And as such, they use their time to do what we have seen this afternoon. So, Mr. Speaker, I object the amendments made by Senate, and I do support the report as presented and as amended and presented by the Leader of Majority. I do support, Mr. Speaker. Thank you very much.
Those who are on the screen, like Ndindi Nyoro, Johanna Ngeno, John Gitonga, you are all for appropriations. Now the mover should be called upon to reply. Majority Leader, you may now reply.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. And let me thank the few members who have contributed and commit that we will, upon rejection of the amendments from the Senate, and I want to beg that members do vote to reject, we will immediately constitute a mediation committee to be able to consider this bill and amendments afresh. I therefore beg to reply.
Order, members, take your seats. Members on their feet, Sabina Chege, take your seat. Order, Sabina Chege, take a seat. Wamshomba, take your seat. Pasaris, take your seat. Honorable members, I now put the question, and those who vote yes will be supporting the amendments from the Senate, and those who vote no will be rejecting. I now put the question, which is that the Senate amendments to the Conflict of Interest Bill, National Assembly Bill number 12 of 2023 be now considered. As members of that opinion say aye. As members of the contrary opinion say nay. Nay. The nays have it. Go back to order number 9.
Order number 9, motion, consideration of the first supplementary estimates for the financial year 2024-2025, general debate.
Honorable Ndindi Nyoro, you are the mover, right? Okay. Johanna Ngeno, you are not ready. John
Yeah.
Gitonga.
Thank you, Speaker.
Yeah. Are you ready to speak?
Okay. Thank you, Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I thank you. I want to thank you for this opportunity also to contribute on this budget, supplementary budget. Speaker, we have realized that there has been difficulties in the country, Mr. Speaker, and this prompted the withdrawal of the finance bill, which was meant to finance to some extent some of the expenditures in our budget, Speaker, and therefore there had to be some austerity measures and some changes to accommodate the much we can collect. Mr. Speaker, I wish to thank the chair for budget for sitting and looking into the issues that we had tabled before the committee. And Speaker, I want to say that as a committee for housing, we factored in, of course, Mr. Speaker, the issues, the needs, which, of course, the people of this country were expecting to appear in that particular supplementary budget. Speaker, we want also to understand that this supplementary budget will have a lot of constraints, and of course, there are so many shortfalls, and especially on funding some vital projects and programs. Mr. Speaker, I particularly, the State Department for Public Works was majorly affected, Mr. Speaker. And remember, this is a very vital organ, especially on inspecting and monitoring and evaluating all the projects which are done in the country, Mr. Speaker. But most importantly, remember the rain that ravaged the country, Mr. Speaker, carried so many food bridges which had been done to allow students cross over to the other areas, to allow even women who are crossing to the other areas for markets, carrying their products. Mr. Speaker, we had, or the State Department had requested for the construction of the food bridges to allow these crossovers. But Mr. Speaker, due to the fall of the finance bill, Mr. Speaker, the whole budget which was allocating these particular activities was completely down. Mr. Speaker, the budget also has given breadth to the employment permanently of the GSS teachers. Remember, Mr. Speaker, we still have a very big and a huge challenge on the issue of JSS, on the issue of our classrooms. Mr. Speaker, this CBC was introduced without considering so many factors. Now it is a baby that we have to nurture. It is something that we have to deal with. It is a matter that we cannot throw it out of the window, Mr. Speaker. And therefore, when this budget was cut, the President looked into whether we are going to throw out the JSS teachers, because that was a very big challenge. But in his wisdom and the wisdom of the Budget Committee, they have managed to allocate good funds to ensure that we have all these JSS teachers employed and be placed under permanent employment. Mr. Speaker, remember this is a very vital area. We also ensure that the CBA, collective bargaining agreement, is considered. And this is a very vital thing, which of course will also give our teachers our teachers comfort, because you know, Mr. Speaker, the foundation of this country is based on education. And just like what somebody said, or a very great person one day said, and education is an equalizer. It is a factor that equalizes all the rich and the poor. They put them in the same pool, Mr. Speaker. So this budget is considering majorly and putting into serious consideration on matters of education, because that is one area that we consider as very fundamental. Mr. Speaker, we know even the roads, we know the electricity, the energy, the Ministry of Energy, most of the issues were cut. But Mr. Speaker, most importantly, now that from the mood of the communication you just sent to this House, Mr. Speaker, you read to this House, Mr. Speaker, where most of the nominees to the cabinet are now from the opposition side, Mr. Speaker. I hope I hope it is now going to bring harmony in this House and especially in the country, so that whatever business we are going to be transacting in this House will sail through. And I'm taking this opportunity to welcome members of the opposition now that they are part of government to help this country to stabilize. And I know the reason why we had that particular move, Mr. Speaker, is to allow this country to have stability, allow this country to move forward, allow this country to focus, allow this country to actually ensure that all the issues, all the projects which have been slated are properly delivered and done. And even as we are passing this supplementary budget one, Mr. Speaker, I wish, as a word of caution, Mr. Speaker, we have seen, even in our committees when we were trying to pass some of the proposals by the state departments, we wanted to ensure that most of the monies, because, Mr. Speaker, where we are collecting this money, the people of the Republic who we are taxing to get this money are going through a lot of pain. So our major request and demand by this House, Mr. Speaker, is that any money allocated for majorly projects, Mr. Speaker, should be utilized on projects, and especially projects, Mr. Speaker, which bring development to our people and to the people of this Republic. So, Mr. Speaker, I wish to say that we will, as much as possible, try to cut some of the expenditures, but most importantly, Mr. Speaker, the cuts which have been placed on development areas, Mr. Speaker, the little that has remained must be properly utilized. And now that we are having almost a new cabinet, though some of them are the same old faces, but we are having almost a new cabinet. We want to ask the members of the cabinet who are coming in, where especially if they were to be passed or vetted and passed in this House, Mr. Speaker, that it is time to work for this country. It is not time to work for yourself. This is no time to reap. This is no time to steal. This is no time to waste. These are monies which we collect painfully from the people of this Republic. So even as we are going to vet these particular cabinet secretaries whose names have been forwarded to this House, Mr. Speaker, our core mandate as this House is to ensure that we vet and pass members of the cabinet who we know their background has nothing to do with corruption. And if they pass that test, Mr. Speaker, we hope they are going to deliver to this nation. They are going to build this nation. They are going to work hard, just like what the president is trying to do, so that we don't look back and say, these are the people who failed this country. So each one of us has a responsibility. As a House, we have the responsibility. As a cabinet, they have the responsibility. As a president, also has the responsibility to ensure that whatever money we appropriate in this House, Mr. Speaker, whatever money we tax the people of this country, Mr. Speaker, and put in the budget must be properly utilized without corruption, without stealing. I thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I support.
Nairobi Women Rep. Oh, you are not ready. Oh, Rosa Buyu.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity. Mr. Speaker, first and foremost, in supporting the supplementary that we've just had, I would like to thank the Gen Zs for giving us the opportunity to relook at that budget. Mr. Speaker, I actually support, because when you look at what has been presented now, there's a lot of austerity measures that's been put in place, which means that money is going to go to good use. Mr. Speaker, however, I would like to say that there's still opportunity to better that budget by looking at duplication in different ministries. Mr. Speaker, when that is realigned, I'm sure the budget will even be lower. But Mr. Speaker, this afternoon, as a woman who has been on the forefront in the women's movement, I want to take this opportunity as a key member of ODM and Azimio. I want to take this opportunity to announce the new leader of minority, Mr. Speaker, the Honorable Millie Odhiambo Mabona. Mr. Speaker, nobody should tell me that I have no authority to do that. I've been in ODM since its inception from 2005. And I've seen women be so loyal to this party called ODM. I've seen women be on the forefront of Azimio. And it is time that a woman is given an opportunity to lead this party in the House. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, I'm speaking of a woman who's distinguished in terms of her contribution.
Yes, order. There's a point of order. Yes, Kamket. What's your point of order? Yes, Kamket.
Mr. Speaker,
Yes.
I'm standing on standing order number 91, and also on relevance, and also, Mr. Speaker, the honourable member is is anticipating debate, because there is no motion in this House, Mr. Speaker, about any appointment. There is no motion on this floor about any appointment of anyone to anywhere. And from the experience, Mr. Speaker, from our own experience yesterday, we now know that what is announced outside,
What is your point of order?
there, on two matters. Is she in order, Mr. Speaker, for the honourable lady to anticipate debate? And two, is she relevant in what she's saying? What she's saying relevant to the debate on supplementary?
Continue.
Mr. Speaker, I'm not preempting any debate. I'm not talking about any cabinet minister, but I'm talking about a seat that seems to be vacant, and I'm talking about a distinguished member of this National Assembly. I'm talking about a woman who is serving her 4th term, and a woman who's distinguished in debates in this House. I'm talking about a distinguished lawyer, and I'm talking about a distinguished human rights defender. And I'm saying it is time for Millie Odhiambo Mabona to take the leadership of minority. And thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Order, honorable lady members. I know you are operating within the exuberance of feminism, but your wailing in the House is out of order. Next, we have John Gitonga. Is he here? You know, some of you key in and then leave. Is he here? No. Kiarie?
Mr. Speaker, it's a great honor to be contributing to this motion on supplementary budget. And as I speak chairing the Committee on Communication, Information and Innovation. And Mr. Speaker, yes, we have been given an opportunity to look at the budget. We in the sector are actually running into a big problem, even with the budget cuts that are happening. Mr. Speaker, if you look at the trend of how the cuts were done at Treasury, they were targeted on certain issues. In the attempt to implement austerity measures, the area of communication is greatly affected across board. Unfortunately, Mr. Speaker, there are ministries and departments and agencies in these governments whose sole responsibility is communication, Mr. Speaker. For example, there is the Department of Broadcast and Telecommunication. In the blanket cuts, this department has been left with a situation where we might go for an entire year where they are only able to pay salaries but not conduct any developmental issue, being that their core business is communication, in such a way that if blanket cuts are done across board affecting communication, their core business is greatly affected. Mr. Speaker, I do support the supplementary budget as we have done. However, Mr. Speaker, it must be said in this parliament that Treasury ought to change its budgeting regime and the way that it does budgeting. Mr. Speaker, Treasury in this country has budgeted for ministries and departments in the same way as it has since 1963, so that sectors that have traditionally enjoyed big budgets continue to enjoy inordinately bigger budgets. The traditional sectors that are capital intensive, that are infrastructure intensive, have continually enjoyed big budgets that probably are even budgeted for corruption, Mr. Speaker. Emerging sectors, Mr. Speaker, like the sector of telecommunication, the sector of innovation, the sector of information, some of which were small departments in traditional bigger sectors. For example, the sector of ICT and digital economy was traditionally a small department within energy. In Treasury, to their mind, ICT and digital economy still remains in their mind a small department within energy. But if you look at the bottom-up economic transformational agenda, if you look at Marshall plans like the Kenya Superhighway, Digital Superhighway program, if you look at Vision 2030, emerging sectors like ICT and the digital economy might be the place where we find a solution for the issues that are being canvassed, even the issues that are being canvassed by the Gen Z on the streets. They are talking about youth engagement. They are talking about employment. This employment will not come from the bigger sectors. It will not come from corporate Kenya. These youth will be meaningfully engaged if members in this house are able to institute digital innovation hubs in each and every ward of this country. It will happen when we are able to make connectivity, get to places like Wajir and Mandera and the other far-flung places in this country. These opportunities will be available when our young people are able to get digital online jobs, where they are able to go to a digital innovation hub in their village and they are able to be paid in dollars. But Mr. Speaker, that is the case we find ourselves in, where Treasury is still budgeting in the way they used to budget in the 60s. Mr. Speaker, our sector in the ICT and digital economy has proven that if you invest 1 shilling, you're going to reap 5 shillings out of that investment. So what we are decrying here, Mr. Speaker, I do stand up as a village crier, saying that even as we prosecute these budgets, Parliament will have to apply itself better so that we can remedy the ills that are coming from Treasury, which are traditionally budgeting in a way that does not benefit us and does not drive us in the way of solving some of the problems that the young people are telling us. So, Mr. Speaker, I do support the consideration of this first supplementary budget, and I do laud the members of the Digital Economy Committee, up to and including the Honorable Dr. Bensouda, who I see here, because they applied themselves well in this supplementary budget to be able to remedy some of those ills that we picked out that were occasioned by the way that Treasury is budgeting for this country. And I want to laud these members of our ICT committee and remind you that in the absence of a committee of the future in this jurisdiction, the Committee on Communication, Information and Innovation is actually the committee of the future. And we shall take our rightful place as Parliament so that we budget as is required by the Constitution, where budgeting happens on this floor in this House. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and I do support.
Zamzam, you are on the... Oh, is that...
Something else.
Who is the member at the end? Mwalio. Honorable Mwalio.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I want to stand to support the supplementary one estimates and be able to hear some grievances that the supplementary budget has created. In this supplementary, then the cuts that we have been able to cut, we have been able to remove entirely majority of the development funds in many sectors and also the ministries. And what we are doing